Welcome to Resh and Will Talk. In this episode, which was recorded in December 2024, myself, Will Hadfield, and Reshma Patel discuss the problems and solutions with weight loss injections. For more information on all things food, diabetes, and weight management, don't forget to follow and subscribe on YouTube or follow We Nutrition UK on Instagram and Facebook. We hope you enjoy the recording.
Welcome. This evening's topic, hopefully you can see it on my shared screen. Please let me know in the chat if you can't see the shared screen. But this evening, we're going to be talking about the problem and the solutions with weight loss injections. So just to introduce ourselves, please don't worry, this isn't going to be PowerPoint after PowerPoint after PowerPoint. It's just to get us going to begin with. But just to introduce ourselves, he says, my name is Will, and I'm here with Resh, and I'll hand over to you, Resh, for your introduction.
So hi everyone, my name's Reshma. I am a specialist weight management dietitian, and by that I mean yes, obesity as well, but I also help clients that want to gain weight to a certain extent too. So we have a eating disorders, disordered eating clinic. I do have a specialist interest in diabetes. It's something that I started off when I worked in the NHS. I used to run a diabetes clinic. It was mainly type 2 diabetes. And that interest flows into the private sector for me now. And I have a clinic in Harrods. So clients see me in person in Harrods, Monday to Friday, we even do Saturdays actually. And I have a clinic in the Middle East in Dubai because a lot of my clients are actually in the Middle East. So they've come into Harrods and they go back. So I do fly out to the Middle East every now and then and look after clients there. And the reoccurring theme everywhere, whichever country I'm stepping into, is diabetes. And now the weight loss injections.
Thank you. And just to introduce myself, my name is Will. I am a diabetes specialist dietitian. I mostly reside in the NHS, but I also have a private practice with We Nutrition. Um, and this is something that I've been talking about for 15 years. I remember when one of the very first weight loss injections or the injections of this sort of area came out when I first started practicing in diabetes 15 years ago. And that was one. And now we've got about 10 different ones on the market. We're really going to be focusing on weight loss injections for people with diabetes, any type of diabetes, and for people without diabetes. So it's just general weight loss injections. And we want to share what we are seeing in practice when we work with people with weight loss injections. And we kind of want to, share some of the things that we know work from working with hundreds of people using these weight loss injections. So whether you haven't thought about using weight loss injections before, whether you're using weight loss injections, maybe you're just thinking about using weight loss injections, you are very, very much welcome. Thank you for coming this evening. Now, to get us, oh, I can see Zoe's joined. Hello, Zoe. To get us into the sort of the brain thinking, the sort of the theme of this evening, I've set up a little Slido. So if I do this properly, oh no, when tech doesn't work. Right, let's try again. Let's stop there. So bear with me. No one wants to see my calendar. That's not fun. This is what I want. I want it full screen. Yes. Okay. So hopefully now you can see a Slido on your screen. If you haven't used Slido before, please don't worry. It's really easy to use. All you need is your phone, or if you're already on your phone and you're watching us on your phone, then you can open up a web browser and type in slido.com. If you're on another screen and you've got your phone, open the camera and scan the QR code. You'll be taken through to Slido. If you're doing it on a web browser, you need to put in this 7-digit code 4047566. That's 4047566. And you'll be presented with a question. Now, the question is, what problems have you heard of or have you experienced with weight loss injections? And you can put one word, you can put 10 words, and it will appear on the screen by magic. But really, this is just to understand, what's going on out there. I can see lots of comments flying in already. Some really, really interesting points here. So if you're seeing anything else on the screen and it makes you think of something else, please put it in. You enter as many times as you want.
Oh, that's my favorite one. Expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. So loss of muscle, difficulty eating, gastro issues, including nausea, bad breath, deficiencies, pancreatitis, socially inhibiting. That's a fantastic one. That's a
Yeah.
great way to phrase it.
Weight gain after you finish injections, that's been a common thing.
Absolutely. And the plateau as well.
Yeah,
I think we're going to talk about that quite a lot tonight, aren't we?
definitely.
Unknown long-term
Unknown
consequences.
long-term consequence, definitely. We don't really know.
Mm,
The drugs are so new. Even though the mechanism is what we know about, we still don't know about this drug in particular and what the long-term consequence really is.
mm.
Oh yeah, self-adjusted doses, always. That's a thing.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a big question there that I want to do research on. Oh yeah, and sadly we have seen some people passing away related to these medicines.
Yeah. Viewed negatively by society like it's cheating. You know what? Just the people using it feel that way as well. It's really weird because I don't think health professionals ever feel like this is cheating. And I'm going to talk about that, I think, because it's a huge psychological impact on people that feel like they cheated their way into weight loss.
Yeah,
Mental health
absolutely.
issues for sure. Yeah. Oh, you guys are amazing. It's not even that many of us.
Very
We've
good.
got so much on there.
Very good. Very good. Excellent. Okay. I think we're going to be talking about a lot of these, aren't we, Resh, this evening, if not all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The only one that I don't have much knowledge on is the thyroid cancer. Someone's put thyroid cancer there. So if we can get a bit more, do you know?
I can talk about that, definitely.
Okay. And also, Will, you'll have to do the type 1 diabetes because I'm not sure about that bit. I don't look after anyone with type 1 anymore.
Absolutely. Excellent. So, as always, as we're going through, please, please, please add comments into the chat box, ask us questions. We want this to be as valuable as possible. It's kind of why we do this. We really get a kick out of this, having these interesting conversations and the back and forth and the dialogue. So, please do ask and comment. I'm going to stop sharing for now. I can see Vanessa has joined us. Welcome, Vanessa. Hope you're having a lovely evening. So there's Resh and I were sort of talking about this, and as I said, we were having these conversations, and we were thinking we need to bring this to people. We want to have this conversation, and we've kind of come up with like our main themes that we're seeing when people use weight loss injections. And what we'd like to do is sort of go through the themes and provide our solutions that we have seen work. So, as clinicians working in this area, we know the research, we know, how it all works, but it's what's happening in reality. And I think what's really important to say before we do this is that we're actually quite pro weight loss injections. Is that fair to say, Rash?
I definitely am pro it. I've got clients ranging from 60 kilos to 120 that are on weight loss injections. I'm very clear on what I do advocate and what I don't, but I am very pro injections, the way I would be any other drug that comes out to support obesity, which frankly isn't a choice for a lot of people. So having that support is so important. Um, the news recently has had a lot of negativity around weight loss injections. And sadly, negativity has actually come from healthcare professionals and dietitians, which I found it's quite hard to listen to or quite hard to read about, because the reality is we're here to help, and diet and exercise is not the only way that we've established that works. We know that there's clear evidence in not just injections, but all the interventions that we have, including surgery, has had a positive impact on people's lives. So I am pro it, but I do understand, just having someone write that there's been deaths from, taking these injections, that too is heartbreaking. But if we balance it up to how many deaths we've had from obesity, they will outweigh any of the medical intervention deaths that we are recording at the moment. So
And I think, we very much take the approach that this isn't the only solution. When we talk about weight management, it is a complex thing. If it were easy, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And this is one option. There are lots of other options. I kind of take the approach that yes, this a weight loss injection is fantastic. If I ever have a problem, I want a menu of options. I don't want one or two. I don't want a taster menu. I want the full menu, and I want to be able to choose at different times. And sadly, that's not always available, especially on the NHS. Um, so we need to figure out what is right for people. And that's kind of what we do as dietitians. It's about understanding and guiding and supporting with what's right at that time. Um, and I would quite happily say to someone, I don't think these are for you, but I think this is for you. If we do go for the weight loss injections, let's get the most out of it. Let's use it in the best possible way and get the best possible results. So that's our disclaimer. Resh, what would you say is kind of like the main issue or the main problem that you're seeing with weight loss injections at the moment in your practice?
So I think given where I'm sat, so somewhere like, Harrods, the clientele that we're looking at have a lot of disposable income. So whilst price is such a big factor, it's not. And when it's not a big deal, you can spend £130 or £260. I've had a client pay for an injection on a monthly basis. It means it becomes unregulated because you're able to get it online. So one of my biggest things are clients are just purchasing it online. And I guess the problem isn't that the client is purchasing, it's the fact that online is just online. We don't actually know what you're purchasing. We don't know if you've got the right injection from the right company, or if you've got something that could potentially be fake. And I know a lot of people are using pharmacies like, Asda, for example, or Boots to purchase this, but they're not being truly honest about their BMIs or the photos that have been submitted. So you're getting something that you shouldn't really have. And that for me is a huge problem because you're not regulated. And then when a client comes to see me to tell me they're on it, I feel an immense amount of responsibility of your GP doesn't know, I don't know your blood results, I don't actually know your full medical, I only know what you've told me. And a lot of people don't tell you everything, things that have happened in the past or scans that they've had. So it just becomes dangerous for that client. And I don't know how to explain the dangers to people because I feel like everyone's just like, oh, well, it's such a low dose and we're just doing it to drop a couple of kilos, we'll be fine.
Mm,
So the unregulated part of it is really scary, if not anything else.
absolutely. And I'm seeing this in the NHS as well. We at sort of one end of the spectrum, we're seeing people buy this off of social media accounts by unregulated, non-medical people, and you just don't know what you're getting in that bottle. You don't know the strength, you don't know the chemicals, you don't know how it's been processed. That is a real danger, and it's really, really worrying. But equally, in the NHS, I'm sort of seeing some people where this isn't the best approach, but because there's such a hype around it, then it it's quite easy to get swept away with, and that's for medical professionals as well as non-medical professionals. Um, and like I said, it's not always the best option. Um, so we've got this kind of unregulated issue that's going on. We've got it not being the best option for people. We've got the hype around social media and the news and everything. This
It's
is a
just
big problem.
toxic. Like I think nothing else, like thyroid medication doesn't get this, pregnancy tests don't get this kind of hype. All of a sudden, weight loss drugs have got a lot of hype around them. And I guess everyone wants it, regardless of size and shape. Everyone's, kind of gets excited about losing a little bit of weight. Even the healthier, as in healthy individuals where, weight and BMI is in the normal category, would be excited about losing a couple of pounds here or there, a couple of kilos before. So it has become trendy. And that's where, it becomes unsafe, where it's trend led rather than actual medically needed. And just for everyone here, I'm sure some of you are health professionals and do know this, but some of the weight loss drugs, for example, Wegovy, can be given to you on the NHS. So we know Ozempic has a clear pathway, but you can, for BMI, say over 30 or over 32, you can, sorry, over 35 is the cutoff. But if you are Asian, Chinese, Middle Eastern, Black African, Afro-Caribbean, your BMI only needs to be 32.5, and you can be eligible to have something like this on the NHS. Now, we are going down as low as BMIs of 30 with other health conditions as well, especially if you're known to have a cardiovascular disease or you're pre-diabetic or you've got high blood pressure, a judgment call is made on whether these medications are suitable for you. And it will be the GP that makes it. But if you're talking to an online service, for example, you can tick a lot of these boxes and get the medication, which is quite scary because, you can say, oh, yeah, well, I've got it. What's the harm? At the end of the day, all you want is the meds. You can get it. And that's where the dangers come in, is that how do you know then when you're increasing your dose? How do you know you're even on the right dose? And how do you deal with the side effects if you're getting any? Who do you actually go to? A lot of my clients don't even have GPs in the country. So they really don't have a support system where you could immediately go and contact somebody.
So Resh, we've got this problem that we're seeing, and we've got a question in the chat that says, "How do you know when it's the best option?"
Yeah.
What do you think is the solution for this problem? And kind of who do you think is most well suited to weight loss injections from your experience?
I think it's having a chat with a health professional. So the best option is talking about it because it's not black and white. Nice guidelines are very black and white. Oh, have this BMI and do this. It doesn't talk about any lifestyle intervention. It doesn't talk about your actual history. So I'm going to give you an example of a client that I look after. This client has obesity that runs in the family. So when you look at the parents and you look at the siblings, you can tell that there is a genetic component to this. And that's what I mean by obesity is not a choice for some people, especially when they have their genes switched on. These people may have tried a whole host of things, numerous different diets. I think every single person who wants an injection has 100% tried a good handful of diets. Okay, they wouldn't have just woken up and said, oh, I'm just going to go for drugs. That's not normal psychology in people. So we've tried a whole load. Exercise might be a thing that they dip in and out of. It might not be something that's structured, but they have tried it. And the reality is they've lost 5 kilos and they've gained it. They've lost it and they've gained it. So they've become yo-yos in this. And with the portrayal of the drug being so, oh, it works and you can lose 10% of your body weight, I think someone like that would be enticed to go for it. Is it the right decision for them? Probably not. It probably isn't because they've tried the weight loss diets, but maybe not had the correct support, the correct psychology, the correct workout plan that actually works for them. So going to the gym 5 times a week may not be right for that person. I think someone like that, I would happily say go on the drugs, but you also need to address the lifestyle part of it. So the drugs are only going to take you to a certain point, but we need to work out the nutrition, the sleep, your hydration, your physical activity, your stress management, the life that you live has to be addressed. So I think someone that does actually fall into that criteria of a BMI of over 30, that has actually tried and maybe failed, and who really thinks, you know what, I think I'll be motivated to do it using the additional pharmacological interventions alongside everything, would be the right candidate, in my opinion.
Excellent. So I guess, what I'm hearing and what I completely agree with here is that it's about having that. I mean, this is kind of one of our top tips, isn't it? It's understanding your options
Yeah,
with someone in a non-bias position.
yeah.
If we go to somewhere like Superdrug or Boots, um, you know, I I hope they would be unbiased, but there is a product to sell. There are sales to be made, and somewhere like Juniper as well. There's different sort of online medications that can be accessed, but it's about finding what is right for that person at that time. So understanding your options with a non-biased, qualified healthcare professional, where you can lay down, right, what are my options? What are the pros and cons of each one? What have I tried before? What worked well? What didn't work well? What do we do now? And I'm a big believer in that just because something hasn't worked before doesn't mean that it doesn't work now. And just because something has worked before doesn't mean it will work now, because we're always changing, we're always evolving, the world around us is always changing. We've got to keep these options open. And I think what I picked up from what you were saying there, Resh, was, it's so, so, so important to address the whole thing, a holistic approach we often talk about. The weight loss injection gives us the biology. In a bit of a way, it gives us the psychology as well, because we find that it takes out the food noise, but it's so important to address everything. So these injections work really, really well for people who have, well, from my experience, they work well for people who have got that experience and they need that launch. They need that base to jump off of, to sort of just get things going, but they've got that experience, they've got the plan for the food, the lifestyle, the psychology, the sociology, and they can weave it all together, and they've got the support network to do that as well.
It's also it's very much like weight loss surgery. If you were someone with a BMI of just say 40 and you wanted weight loss surgery, you are not going to get it on the NHS for the best part of a year. You're going to be put into a system. And the system is like a tier 3 weight management service where you get psychological support, you get a dietitian, and you get physical activity. The reason they do this is because most people aren't safe to just go walking into surgery. You're not physically safe to do that, but you're not also emotionally and mentally ready to take on that big life-changing thing that's about to happen to you. So you're almost prepped for it. Now, a lot of people, when they go through that tier 3 service, drop off the surgery list because they've had a structured program that's actually worked for them. So they no longer feel like surgery is one of their options. Before, when nothing was working, it was their option. And I feel exactly the same for injections. I don't think anyone should be allowed till they've done, and I'm talking a minimum of 2-week intervention with a dietitian where you can sit there and we can start working with you. We'll give you the injections anyway, but for 2 to 3 weeks, we want to align everything so you're ready to take on that injection. And that alignment will be your nutrition, will be the way you're sleeping, will be introducing some of the physical activity elements into this. And as soon as all of that is aligned, we can start with the injections. But what clients will find is within those 2 weeks, they've already made a change, both physically and mentally. They're already on that weight loss journey. And the injection is just the third thing that we're bringing in. We've brought in a couple of other um, treatments that are working. And then we're going to give you that, baseline 0.25 or something that really isn't going to make that much of a difference. It's going to start, but the hard work is already being done by you. And I think mentally, that's the right way to do an intervention rather than everything else. And I give other examples. It's like when you have a cough and a cold, you're going to try all the remedies first. You're going to give yourself rest. You're going to do hydration, lots of herbal teas, lots of hot drinks. Then you're going to go on to antibiotics, when you really can't figure it out. No one's just going to walk in the very next day and say, I need antibiotics. You try something before and you try it in a supported environment. And then, you go on and say, actually, I'm going to take on the drugs, because there's no harm in doing it if you're doing it correctly.
So I guess one of our messages here is, if you are going through the NHS, it will be a structured approach with a multidisciplinary team, including dietitians, nutritionists, doctors, pharmacists, psychologists, clinical psychologists, exercise specialists. If you are going, and that's kind of why there is such a long waiting list on the NHS, but if you are going outside of the NHS, we strongly recommend either, using kind of building a team. I say to people, you want to have your personal trainer, you want to have a therapist maybe, or you want someone who maybe blends a little bit of things together. So you get dietitians that can advise on exercise or can use those cognitive behavior strategies, or behavior change techniques. You want a doctor prescribing. It's almost building a bit of a village. Programs will have aspects of this. I don't know if I've come across a program where I've thought this has everything. They do have some good components, but it's about finding what works for you.
Yeah. Also, when you get some of these on the NHS, you get you get a referral done to group weight management, which I find with my clients, nobody's got the time on a Thursday afternoon to leave work a bit early to go and sit in a group that's held, probably local to where you are. But it could be like in Camden, for example. People just don't have the time to do that. And they're group education sessions where they're talking about food and re-educating you and portion sizes and what to eat when you're on the injections. But the reality is people don't have the time to commit to that. Once they've started, they're going to make it up as they go along. And I think that goes on to Megan's asked a lovely question here of what kind of food do you eat when you're on this medication? I mean, the reality is you eat as normal. We're not asking anyone to change their diet because that should have happened before you started the medication. We should have already addressed some of the problems that the diet has that's not working from a weight management perspective. So we would have already thought about that. But on this medication, the way it works is it stops you feeling hungry. So it gives you that appetite suppressant, makes you feel satiated. So it's just receptors in your brain that are kind of blocking the signals of hunger. You can eat what we would expect as a healthy, balanced diet, but a smaller quantity of it. And 9 out of 10 times, your body will tell you when you are full. So you won't be able to overeat on these medications. You will just be eating a healthy plate, but a smaller amount. Now, that's not to say you're not going to crave a Ferrero Rocher. You will. Why wouldn't you? They're not stopping your this. We haven't worked on the craving part of it where you might want something or you might want a glass of wine. If you're sat with your friends, you may choose to have the cheese and crackers over the meal because that's all you can eat. And this is where that support has to come through because we don't want you to stop eating chocolate or stop drinking wine or doing all of that because you're on this medication. Because the reality is, when you come off the meds, you're still going to want all of this and you're going to eat it. So we want to find that balance that addresses the problem, nurtures you into the right diet, and you go through it. And then when you come off, you continue with the diet that you kind of had, but you're just increasing that portion maybe a little bit because you are feeling hungrier as you come off. But there isn't like a specialist diet that I've put any of my clients on when they've started any of these medications. I've just tweaked what they're already doing.
I think this kind of speaks to the fact that, you know, there needs for weight loss to occur, usually there needs to be a change in food. There's that saying that you can't outrun a bad diet. But we're just looking at healthy eating here. What I would say categorically is that weight loss injections aren't for people with disordered eating. In my experience, it makes things worse, and it gets really messy really quickly. Now that for and when I say that, we've got disordered eating and eating disorder. There's lots of different eating disorders that are, can be diagnosed, but quite often it can be difficult to get a diagnosis. But they are one of the exclusion criteria for these medications. Not to say that it doesn't happen, but you need to be very, very well supported if you have had an eating disorder in the past and then you're using the weight loss injections. But when I talk about disordered eating, it's kind of a subclinical sub-diagnosis, but it's recognizing the fact that eating is a very emotional thing. And quite often when I speak to people, we're talking about behaviors around food that have been built since early childhood. And we're working to understand decades of behaviors and emotions around food. And we're unpicking them, and we're understanding how they're not really serving, and we're rewriting them so
Yeah,
that
so
we can build them new behaviors.
yeah, I think that's so important. We're not just removing them, we're replacing them with other strategies that are going to fulfill that need that you have within that, whatever it is, we put something there in place so there's no empty hole. And when people do it on their own, they just remove the food and that emotion is still there, that problem is still there. And it's really difficult. You have a one-person battle where you're battling with yourself of, oh my God, I really want to eat it, or I feel that. And there's a huge amount of psychology involved with food and with taking drugs as well. The fact that you're allowing something else to control you can become a really sad element in people's life. And I have seen that in clients where they've said, this was the only thing I have, and now even that has been taken away from me. So it's so important to try and rethink how the drugs work, how they're going to affect you from a psychological point of view. And disordered eating is also really difficult. An eating disorder almost becomes black and white for us as dietitians. We can characterize that and we know that. But if someone's gone through trauma in their life, and that could be anything from job loss to losing a parent, animal, anything, any sort of trauma in our life, we do turn to food. Some people don't, but majority of us will find comfort in food. And those habits have just stuck with us. And it's going back to address that trauma and talking about it to be able to reframe everything. So I think, it's not as black and white as people think it is. And having something like a weight loss drug that's available online dismisses anything that's happened in your life. It just, there's no talk of it. It almost is like, oh, we'll start fresh, but we haven't actually addressed that problem, which I think is, really sad and difficult. Um,
So this is kind of just to come back to Megan's earlier question. Weight loss injections are great for people who are aware of what's going on. They know the issues, they've got maybe some ideas and some options of how to deal with the underlying issues. And it's just getting the injection on to get things going in the right direction, but with a very clear intention and plan
Yeah,
for doing those other bits and bobs. Um, can I just jump in about diet rash?
these days.
Because I think, we talk about healthy eating, and I, I think healthy eating is so difficult. If you're a busy parent, you've got a full-time job, you're looking after the kids, maybe you're in that life stage where you're supporting elderly parents as well, or you've got that extended family. You are the linchpin of a lot of people's worlds. Eating healthy is hard. Um, Eating 5 a day minimum. This is something that I really focus on with these weight loss injections, because 5 a day isn't a target, it's a minimum requirement. We know from looking at studies that actually we need to be exceeding 5 a day. We need to probably be going for 8 a day for long term success in weight loss and weight loss maintenance. We need protein as well. We need lean protein, um, 2, 3 portions a day. And sometimes, especially if people are following vegetarian or vegan diets, we need to make a real effort to get that protein in. And that's just healthy eating, but it's really important because if we lose weight quickly, we lose muscle mass, and then we need to combine that with weight resistant exercises. It's not just good enough eating the protein, it's eating the protein and bringing in the weight resistant exercises to limit that muscle loss, so that when we come to maintenance, we're not just going to the weight isn't just going to come straight back. That muscle is so, so, so important.
And it is a lot of muscle loss. And I see that because we do an in-body scan for clients at start. And what you'll realize is if the diet isn't on point and the exercise isn't happening, we will see a marked movement in muscle loss. So again, from a longevity point of view, from a health perspective, muscle is not what we want to lose. And these injections are designed to target any sort of loss. So they don't pick the fat and remove it, they will pick anything. And I would say majority of my clients have lost muscle mass on the injections, because it takes me a little while to change up the diet and increase the protein and get them to do the physical activity at a level that is needed whilst they're on these injections. We're doing a whole lifestyle change here. So muscle loss is a very, very big thing and very common as well. So it will happen, and then we will stop it from happening and make sure it is just the fat that's coming through. I am very conscious of time, and I think I'm going to just try and shoot through some of these questions, because Zoe's asked, are you able to manage when a patient should stop taking the injections, and how do you go about this if they are able to buy them elsewhere? So the reality is, when a client is taking an injection and they're working with me, I will also wean them off the injection. So we'll get them to a point where the weight loss is predominantly coming from the calorie deficit that they have with the appetite that's been suppressed, and the exercise hits a threshold. Once we get there, and I think they're on a dose which isn't the maximum amount, because I don't like clients to get onto that amount, I almost like them to withdraw a little bit. So we step down on the medication, go back down a dose, and prove to them that actually the diet and exercise is working for them before we taper off. And if at any point I feel like it's not working, we need to stay on the same dose for a little bit longer, we can manipulate that and we can manage that. When clients are taking their own injections, or when they are with GPs, for example, we have had a time where someone's taking 0.5 and the next dose is 0.75, and the client's not lost any weight, and there's been no change in diet, no change in activity, and the GP's like, we can't give you the same dose, you have to go up to the next one. And that's where that argument always happens, is the GP didn't do anything because, one, they're not specialized in doing that, they don't know how to manipulate it, they don't really know your journey, because they're just here looking at what dose you're on and bringing you up to the next thing. So it really isn't their job at that point to be doing it. But I think it's really difficult if clients are on their own because their only option is to go up. There is never like, oh, do we go down? Has anyone ever spoken to a client about dropping the dose down to stop? It's just you get up there and then you just point blank. Tomorrow morning, you're not taking the injections all of a sudden, and your appetite within the next 4 days is going to come back to normal. So ideally, there should be support. There isn't support, and no one is going to seek it when they've come off the injections. It's just not what people do. There's no protocol to tell them that this is how you come on and off an injection. So I think you have to seek that out, or someone's going to have to look for that support of how do I come off something like that. It's a bit like anti-anxiety medication, medication for depression. Shouldn't just be point blank stopping at the end of your packet. There should be a tapering of coming off. So your mind can deal with it and your body can deal with it. It's not just it's quite harsh what this does to your body, especially when you start going up doses. You really feel the symptoms: nausea, vomiting. That's a real obvious feeling, and a lot of people can't adhere to that. I, for one, would never be able to take any sort of nausea or vomiting. I just wouldn't be able to tolerate it. It'd make me stop taking any drug. So we should have some support, but we don't.
So I guess our top tips here for coming down would be do it in a planned approach with support. What we're doing is we're assuming that the work for food and exercise, activity, lifestyle, we're assuming that's already been done. And then it's putting those skills and tools into action as the doses are dropped. With my clients, very similar to Resh, drop the dose at the right time. If there is holidays coming up, festivals coming up, if work is about to get bonkers, then that is not the right time to reduce a dose. It just plain and simple is not. You're asking for trouble. So reducing it at the right time, and I'd say have a low threshold for going back up. So if the dose is reduced and weight is regained quickly, that's saying that we need to do some more work on those underlying tools and skills to get ready for the dose reduction. If you're in the NHS, I'd say that is a perfect time to use a weight management service. When coming down, because what NICE guidelines says for GPs is outside of diabetes, use it for 2 years and then stop. As Resh said, there is no weaning instructions, but we do have that expertise from using it in diabetes for the past 15 plus years. We know that the weaning is really, really important. You can also access a dietitian via the NHS. Bit of a postcode lottery, but a lot of places do have PCN dietitians. So it might be worth asking your GP for a PCN dietitian. Or, you can go for a freelance dietitian as well. Hopefully that's answered the question, Zoe. I can see another question from Kate. Gone through stage 3 weight management system and now just been referred to stage 4, which says a good thing to do in the interim. I'm not sure I understand that.
So you've done a tier 3 weight management program, because tier 4 is usually for surgery, if you're someone that's going into surgery. But Kate, if you give us a little bit more information on that, we'll get back to you. Even if we run out of time, we'll hang on to answer that one for you. I'll just move on to Megan. This one's for you and Will. Is a level of support you described from the NHS only from tertiary weight loss services? What happens if diabetes services prescribe the medication?
Okay, really, really good question, Megan. I wish the support were there. So what could happen is that diabetes services could refer to a weight management service, and then the support would be there. But what I am seeing in the NHS is that diabetes services are prescribing for people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes, maybe going off of script a little bit, and it works, but the support isn't always there. So I always encourage people to ask for that support. If you know what support you need, seek it. I'd get a sheet of paper and write down what you think you need, have that discussion with whoever is prescribing and say, okay, great, we've got the medication, but what about these things? Who can help me with these things? Is it going to be something from the GP? Is it going to be something from within the diabetes service? Is it going to be mixed with a bit of something outside the NHS? Build it up to find out what works for you. Um, it- my experience is I work in a diabetes service. These medications are being prescribed, and unfortunately, we're not providing this high level of care that Resh and I are talking about that we know works. Um, 15 years ago, it was, and this is the sad thing. When these medications were first being used, there was this beautiful pathway, and some places still have it. But over the years through COVID, they've just been absolutely decimated. And this is why the waiting lists are so long for weight management services, because they're still recovering from the pandemic. Those services shut down for 2 years and they're still trying to get through people who are waiting.
And the
Um,
triaging is worse than it's ever been. It's almost like you have to be severely overweight with lots of health complications for you to be seen. And if you're en route to that, you're not a priority. You're only a priority till you get there, which is so sad because we can't help with prevention at the moment because we're so desperately trying to work with cure almost. We can't work at the bottom end where we could stop people from getting there because there's no money in the system for that. There's no resources. There's just no time. It's working top down in the NHS at the moment, sadly.
it's a great question here about protein.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So I work with, it's really difficult, Sam, because remember when we're looking at weight management in those who are clinically obese or, classed that way, we work with ideal body weight. So we have to figure out what the client's ideal is and then work with that zero 0.7 to 1 gram per kilogram of their ideal body weight. And give them like a range, what we want them to hit. But giving the number is one thing. How we're going to get it into them is another thing. Because their appetite is being suppressed, it might be a bit too much to hit the actual requirement that we have on a piece of paper, but we'll prioritize that with the client to say, okay, we want you to have the protein first, then the veg, and then manage the carbohydrates. And we look at different protein sources that can be split throughout the day. And it's not just in your 3 meals. It might be you taking a little bit of a protein yogurt in between as a little snack because you can tolerate that. But working with ideal body weights and 0.7 to 1 gram per body weight is a good way to start off with, I think.
Absolutely. And just to jump in on this, I guess one of the things that I'm seeing in practice is that people go for really high protein diets. They're doing sort of 1.5, 2 grams of protein per kilogram weight per day. This is kind of like athletes level of protein. And because they are getting full so quickly, they're not having the fruits and veg, they're not having the fiber, their immunity is suffering, their gut microbiome is suffering, they're constipated as anything. So, as well as just feeling generally horrible, they, especially this time of year, I'm seeing so many people get poorly.
Yeah.
You know, they're catching colds quicker, more than they would do normally. They're catching flu quicker. They're taking longer to heal because they're not getting that minimum of 5 a day. They're not supporting that gut microbiome as they're over prioritizing protein.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
It's
And Becky Vass's nausea tend to be short-lived. What I find is clients don't actually feel symptoms on the lowest dose. So your body's just adjusting. You might feel a little bit queasy, but we don't find on 0.25 or anything like that actual symptoms. By the time you've gone up by 2 injections, a 2.5, 0.5, 0.75, constipation is a big one. Bloating is another one, and nausea is the immediate one. I think you can go up today and tomorrow morning you'll feel the nausea. Do you get used to it? It really depends on the people. Some people don't feel it as much. Again, these are quite psychological as well. You feel it, the physiology changes, but your brain can then keep telling you that, oh, I don't feel too well, or I feel sick. And it really does play havoc on people's lives. So constipation and nausea, I would say, are two of the most obvious ones that literally everyone must go through. And there are other serious ones, and you'll know if you're ever going to get those. But we've had case of pancreatitis, which is an immediate hospital admission, and I think that's the most severe thing that I've heard. Obviously, we've had death, but I don't know any other symptoms where clients have struggled, because we do monitor bloods throughout this as well. But constipation and nausea are the most obvious ones.
Yeah. So, Vera, and coming back to one of the previous things that we talked about, thyroid cancer, we know in animal models when they use this medication, it was linked to very rare thyroid cancer. We know that it is linked to pancreatitis. So, if anyone has had pancreatitis before, that is an exclusion for this type of medication. And if anybody has had gallstones before, it is an exclusion for this type of medicine because we know that that is increased risk of pancreatitis. I think that the top tip here for the symptoms, the common symptoms, nausea, vomiting, constipation, distension, bloating, it's listen to your body.
Yeah.
I say this time and time again because it's so hard to listen to your body. We go through life and we've got so many distractions. The phone's pinging, the kids are shouting, we've got emails pinging off, there's a phone call, there's someone talking in the office. It's so hard to listen to what your body is trying to tell you. And this is so, so, so important. And this is one of the beautiful things about these weight loss injections. It gives you an opportunity to tune in to what is happening to the body. There's a lot of mindfulness techniques that can be used here to just understand that fullness point. When does that fullness become uncomfortable? How does that feel for that person? What are the telltale signs? But equally, for hunger, what are the telltale signs of hunger? So, if anyone has ever used a hunger and fullness scale, I always recommend a hunger and fullness scale when starting a weight loss injection, and then again when increasing the dose, because those cues change, and it's really important to be aware of them. And when coming down, stepping down the doses, hunger and fullness scale, understand how your body works at that dose at that time.
And even when we come down, weight gain is really common and not to be feared. You are going to gain weight. Please don't ever think you're not going to, but the weight will stabilize at some point. You're not going to go all the way up. You're not even going to get half of the weight gain back if you're doing it correctly with support, but you are going to gain weight. That's normal. You're going from a calorie deficit and something that's totally suppressed your appetite to your appetite now coming back and you being able to eat a little bit more. So it's finding that set point for you, and it's not going to be one number. I always tell clients, your set point's not one number. You will fluctuate within 2 kilos, but you won't feel that difference usually. What you find is you might be up one day, down one day, but you have to stay within a range once when you start tapering off the medication. It's not a number. I think we've answered all the questions, which I really wanted to get through because I think these sessions are more beneficial if we get your questions. Okay, I'm just coming back to this one because if I'm thinking about this correctly, that you've done stage tier 3, which is, psychological support, helping you to understand portion sizes. There's no pharmacological intervention, whereas stage 4 is you're on the list for bariatrics. And if you're asking that if it's a good thing to do weight loss injections in the interim, the way we answer that question is knowing what your stage 3 journey was like. How much weight did you lose? What changes did you make? And really understanding what you might be struggling with right now. So where is the struggle in continuing your weight loss? And why would you why do you think the weight loss injections are going to help? If we know that, then we can decide whether that would be the right next step for you, or whether we need to do a little bit more deeper intervention in the stage 3 and what you did. Because once you're on a wait list, remember, you can drop off those things anytime. You can come off, you can say no, you can delay. But are you looking for something that's a little less permanent than what stage 4 really is? If it is, then someone needs to help you to make that decision. And that decision is usually easily made when you have a professional talking to you rather than you having to figure it out yourself, because you won't ask the right questions to yourself. I hope that answers that question a little bit. But please do feel free to email us if there is anything more. And if anyone's got any other questions, we do have a little bit of time, so please just drop them in now and we'll get them answered quickly.
Oh, good. Excellent. Resh, if in the interest of time, just I don't want people to miss it. If people want to find you, where can they find you?
You can find me in Harrods. You can find me on social media. I'm the Dietitian Global, so please feel free to drop into my DMs, or you can just email me. It's reshma@thedietitian.com. But yeah, if you want an appointment, you can definitely call me or call Harrods and they'll book you in. If it's just a question, please don't ever hesitate to just drop into our social media or something like that to answer any questions.
Excellent. Excellent. And for myself, again, social media, it's We Nutrition UK, or email is hello@wenutrition.co.uk. Come and have a chat with us. We're always happy to chat and, I think answer any questions. Some questions aren't really so simple to answer over chat and over text. It might need a bit more of a chat. So yeah, please do get in contact. I see some. Oh, thank you, Kate. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you all for
Right.
joining. It's so lovely to have a group where everyone's interacting and talking, and also having questions. It makes it much easier to get people's questions answered. It's really nice. And we enjoy it so much. We don't ever feel like it's an evening of work. It's actually just such a pleasure to be able to share knowledge and learn from everyone else. Like the thyroid cancer thing, totally missed it. No idea about it. There's
Excellent.
something for me to go
Thank you
look
all.
up.
Thank you all so much.